All right, let's dive into a real-world story about our rights as consumers. It's one of those situations that's just infuriating, right? You pay for something, the business denies you that service, and then you're stuck fighting to get your own money back. So let's break down exactly what happened here.
So just picture this for a second. You've prepaid for something, maybe a hotel room, a workshop, whatever. You've done your part. You show up, and the business just says, nope, sorry, and refuses to serve you, and they keep your money. It feels totally wrong, doesn't it? Well, that is the exact scenario we're looking at today, and it really makes you ask, what can you actually do about it?
So our story really kicks off with this sudden conflict. We have a consumer who prepaid for their lodging, everything's all set, and then, out of nowhere, they're told they're not welcome anymore. This is where the whole confrontation over a paid-for-service begins.
Now here's the really weird part. This whole blow-up didn't even start because of a new problem. Nope. It was a manager deciding to bring up an issue from a week ago. An issue that, by the way, had already been completely handled and put to bed. So there was literally no new reason for what was about to happen.
And this is where we go from a simple, strange disagreement to a completely unjustified removal. Let's take a look at how this all unraveled, turning a simple prepaid stay into a forced eviction.
The manager's actions were, frankly, way over the top. First, they just decided all on their own to tear up the prepaid agreement. No discussion, no cause. Then they started bringing up these totally irrelevant and, honestly, inflammatory topics, things like race, identity, even immigration, none of which had anything to do with anything. And finally, they demanded the guest pack their bags and get out, right then and there.
So you can imagine the guest is completely blindsided and, of course, asks the most logical question in the world. Why? Right? What rule did I break? What part of the contract did I violate? What is the official reason for kicking me out after I've already paid you?
And this was the answer. Not, you violated policy 7B, not, we have a specific complaint, just this incredibly vague, subjective feeling, staff felt uncomfortable. Now, let's be crystal clear, that is not a legal or contractual reason to terminate a service you've been paid for and then keep the cash. This timeline just shows you how wild the whole thing was. A full week goes by after an issue is solved. Nothing happens. Then, bam! With no new event, a manager just decides to escalate the old problem, and it immediately leads to terminating the agreement. The speed and the lack of a real reason are just staggering.
As you might guess, things got pretty tense. So tense, in fact, that law enforcement had to be called in. And that's a huge step, right? It really raises the stakes for everybody involved.
So the police arrive, they investigate, and they find zero wrongdoing by the guest. None. No misconduct, no rules broken, and yet, and this is key, because the manager is the property's representative, the police just have to instruct the guest to leave based on the manager's demand. The guest did the right thing, complied fully, and was involuntarily removed from a place they had paid to be.
Okay, but here's where the story takes a massive turn. In the middle of all this chaos, a crucial promise was made, and that one promise would end up being the entire foundation for the consumer's case.
So during this whole confrontation, the manager made a very clear, very direct statement. When asked about the money for the unused nights, the manager said on record that the balance would be refunded. That's a direct quote, and it's an absolutely critical piece of evidence.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly, doesn't it? On one side, you have the promise, on the record, you'll get a full refund. And on the other side, the hotel's actual action, a flat-out refusal to return a single penny. That contradiction, that's everything.
So, how in the world do you prove a promise like that was made? Well, this consumer had the incredible foresight to document the whole thing. They have 2 lawful recordings of the conversations, including the one where the manager guarantees that refund.
Now you might be thinking, hold on, is that even legal? Great question. This all happened in Georgia, which is what's known as a one-party consent state. All that means is a recording is perfectly legal as long as at least one person in the conversation knows it's happening, which of course was the person hitting the record button. This makes that evidence totally solid and admissible.
Okay, so we've got the story. We've got the rock-solid evidence. Now it's time to build the formal dispute. This is how you translate a frustrating personal story into the specific language that banks and credit card companies actually understand and act on. The very first pillar of your case is built on this powerful phrase, services not rendered. It's a fancy term, but the concept is super simple. I paid you for something and you didn't give it to me. And connecting our story to this definition, it's a slam dunk. Was the service denied? Check. Was the guest forced to leave? Yup. Check. Did the merchant keep the money for the nights the guest couldn't be there? Big check. It's a perfect fit.
But wait, there's more. The second pillar of the case is merchant misrepresentation. This is what happens when a business tells you one thing, like don't worry, you'll get a refund, and then turns around and does the exact opposite. And again, the facts of our storyline line up perfectly. Did the merchant explicitly promise a refund? Yes, we have it on tape. Did they then refuse to honor that promise? Absolutely. They basically misrepresented their own refund policy in the heat of the moment.
So after digging through this whole mess, what can we all learn from it? Let's boil this story down into a practical toolkit that you can actually use to protect yourself out there. Okay, here are the big takeaways. Number 1, document everything. If a business promises you something important, get it in writing, or if it's legal where you are, get it on a recording. 2, know the lingo. Using powerful terms like services not rendered shows you're serious. 3, understand your local laws, especially about recording. And finally, when you make your claim, don't just tell the story. Explicitly connect the business's actions to these specific violations. And that really just leaves us with one final question to think about. We deal with businesses every single day, and usually it's fine. But if it's not, if a business breaks a promise and your hard-earned money is on the line, how prepared are you really to prove your side of the story? Definitely something worth thinking about.